time for Run the Jewels. This is protest music at its finest, and it couldn't come out at a better time. So today I'm reviewing Run the Jewels RTJ4, and I am sipping on a Founders Dirty Bastard. That's because they mention the great old dirty bastard in the lyrics of this album, and because it's a hard 8.5% Scotch ale for a very hard album. So let's get right into this review. The first track is Yankee and the Brave, and this one was released as a single, and right on the beginning of this album we're hit with that signature sound, that LP bust your shit open beats and passionate Killer Mike flow. Yankee and the Brave is a reference to their hometown baseball teams and a bit of a theme that they have running through this whole album, which also plays into the LPs from the North and Killer Mike is from the South type of thing that they've always had going on. LP's flow kills it on his off-kilter beat on this thing, by the way. I love the structure of this song. I think it's a great way to start the album where they're each kicking it off with a longer verse, and then they get into shorter verses where they're trading off, and the shorter verses create a story where the cops are after Mike, and LP is the getaway driver. During this story, LP kicks a good line at his partner's expense where he says, "I got the Grand Nat running in the alley outside. Now, Michael, run like you hungry and get your ass in the ride." Little reference to Mike's weight there, but it's all in good fun. Mike picks it up and laughs with him a little later on. Ooh La La is the second single on this, and it was nice that they included Premier and Greg Nice, a little homage to the classic Gangstar track where they take this sample from. I respect the original line from the Gangstar song, and as a verse it works because Greg Nice killed that verse in the original song. And he goes on to say much more poignant things, but as a chorus repeated over and over, I don't really like it, and I'm not sure why they included this as the particular single. It's a little monotonous with the ooh la la, ah wee wee. But I do like the verses on this, particularly Killer Mike's, and this is where we get to see him start to warm up for some of what he's going to do on this album, and he pretty much goes off. This is also where we get the Dirty Bastard line, the ODB line, and it's very fitting because the beat is a little reminiscent of the song Brooklyn Zoo, especially in the piano loop. Out of Sight, that bass line, god damn, that is a crazy bass line that LP has produced for this song. And I've seen these guys in concert twice, and I've seen Killer Mike a separate time, and this kind of song is what gets people jumping and moshing. It's rare you see mosh pits at a rap show, but I've definitely seen it with these guys, and this is the kind of beat that people are going to mosh to. As heavy as that bass is and as awesome as it is, I love how it drops out on Mike's second verse to accentuate his flow and what he's saying because he's saying something really poignant. It's one of the many Mike highlights on the album. This is so good that even their much less talented guest star 2 Chainz couldn't distract too much from the strength of the song, even though he does have one really bad line on his verse. It still works as a whole, and this is a highlight of the album and still a really great song. Holy Califuck kicks it off with a little classic rhyme scheme, and I don't know if you all realize how much homage Jamie and Mike are paying to the old school on this, but on this track with Killer Mike's verse starting off, and then when LP starts his verse, they are paying homage to the classic track by Smooth the Hustler called Broken Language. It's a little bit forgotten in the modern era and not something that sticks out from the old school on many people's lists, but that is a great track and something that you should check out. What makes this song, though, is the classic LP beat switch up, which he does here very effectively, and which he does effectively throughout the rest of the album. And these weird sounds that LP puts in, and just what we've come to know of him as a producer over the many, many years that we've been listening to him. Some of these weird sound effects like the ribbit that he throws in after his line about licking a toad. And LP's verse really reminds me of his solo days, some of the classic LP, and this is one of his best verses on the album. And there's more beat change-ups at the end of the song, making this a really interesting listen. Goonies versus E.T. is a highlight with another great bass-heavy beat, and more importantly, Killer Mike's verse. You might be nodding your head to his cadence and how he rides the beat smoothly, but really listen to what he's saying. His whole verse is a quotable as he calls out fake woke people in the current state of America with lines like, "Now I understand that woke folk be playin'. Ain't no revolution that's televised and digitized. You've been hypnotized and Twitterized by silly guys. Cues to the evening news, make sure you ill-advise." Very poignant verse, very great, and he'll do it even better a little bit later on the album. Walking in the Snow is another one of the highlights, and when I say that this is protest music, this particular song is where it comes to a head. They've always been tinged toward the side of calling out the ills of the world, but no music could be better for the nation right now to highlight the current wrongs of America than this song. With LP first addressing one of the more heinous acts in recent American history with lines like, "Funny fact about a cage, they're never built for just one group. So when that cage is done with them and you still poor, it come for you." But then, goddamn, Mike's verse, this is immediately eligible for Verse of the Year. Accentuated by several LP beat change-ups, Mike speaks about what's wrong with the nation, specifically speaking on prisons, police brutality, and the apathy of people not doing anything about it. You should listen to this whole verse, but one line in particular stands out in the wake of George Floyd's death and the protests that followed, where Mike says, "And you so numb you watch the cops choke out a man like me, until my voice goes from a shriek to whisper, I can't breathe. And you sit there in the house on couch and watch it on TV. The most you give's a Twitter rant and call it a tragedy." And why did this come out right after George Floyd's death? Because when they were recording this, they didn't know about George Floyd, but it's because we continue to see the same situation again and again and again, and it's just a matter of time before another situation like that happens. So Mike is right to call out the apathy of everything that's happened before, and hopefully with the movement that we're seeing now surrounding George Floyd's death, then that'll get movement and something that Killer Mike wants. The next track, Just, features Pharrell and Zack de la Rocha. I never thought I'd hear these two on the same track together, but this is a great track and it works with these guest appearances. And Pharrell is getting a little risky for his brand, but he's definitely got something to say on the chorus where he says, "Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar." So more criticism of capitalism, more criticism of the embedded racism in America on this track, and it's very fitting that they had Rage Against the Machine frontman Zack de la Rocha again featured on another Run the Jewels album. I love LP's line on this, "I got a Vanna gut punch for your Ayn Rand," referencing one of my favorite writers, the very liberal Kurt Vonnegut, and comparing it to the conservative Ayn Rand and her book Atlas Shrugged. And that's his way of saying that this liberal socialism will take over your capitalist worship of the dollar ideology, and he packs in layers of meaning with that line alone. De La Rocha's verse is very hard too, and I think this might be my favorite feature that he's done on any Run the Jewels album, and this dude could spit. It's a shame that we never heard that solo rap album that he was supposed to put out a long time ago. Never Look Back, this is definitely not a standout, but it's fine for what it is. The beats and the lyrics don't stand out too much, although there are a few lines in here, particularly from Mike's last verse, that keep it with the theme of the album. The Ground Below provides a little comic relief after all the political and heavy rhymes that we've been hearing on previous tracks, with both of them ending their verse with very poignant observational lyrics. LP in particular with his line, "You see a future where Run the Jewels ain't the shit. Cancel my Hitler-killing trip, turn the time machine back around a century." That's how important this shit is to him. he will cancel killing Hitler if you start to talk shit about Run the Jewels. So I thought that was a funny line and something that just added a little different substance to this album. These last two tracks, though, they do feel a bit out of place after all the politically charged and social commentary that they gave on the several tracks before them. They bring the social commentary back on the next track, Pulling the Pin, and the beat slows down a bit, and sometimes this type of beat is when LP is at his best as a producer. I love the chorus on this by Mavis Staples. It's very ominous with tons of reverb, works within the concept of the track for sure. Mike gives another great verse with a rapid flow over the slower beat, and with a ton of alliteration, he again speaks about society's ills. With lines like, "At best, life is difficult, poor and you pitiful. Then every day's like a satanic ritual. Beautiful soul with a rogue and the criminal. How long must the holy hold on to the principles?" A few words for the firing squad rounds it out really nicely. I love the concept of this track in speaking their final words before an execution committee, and maybe they've been captured by the oppressive regime that they've been criticizing throughout this album. That really works as a concept. And this is another slowed down beat, at first with no drums at all. LP kicks jewels in his first verse and again questions capitalism as they've done throughout the album. Mike again talks about his original love for money and the evils that it can cause. Through the verses, you can feel the track building to the explosion that comes in the instrumental break, a great saxophone jazz solo. Lots of saxophone solos on rap albums recently. We heard it on Code of the Friend, we heard it on Con, and I think it's becoming a bit of a trend for hip-hop albums to have saxophone solos in them, but in my opinion, this one does it best. It just crescendos into a climax of all-out jazz type of chaos on this saxophone solo that's at the very end of this album. Just at a time when I thought their formula may have run its course, this just may be my favorite Run the Jewels album, rivaling Run the Jewels 2. It comes out at a perfect time with nationwide protests going on, and their social commentary is completely on point. The production is LP's best that we've heard in a while, and Killer Mike kills the mics both with his substance and cadence. He is for sure a contender for Verse of the Year on a couple of these tracks. I'm going to give this a 9 out of a 12 pack because you'll be feeling it immediately and you'll be remembering it for years to come. Thank you for watching my review of Run the Jewels 4. If you liked my analysis of the album, go ahead and hit like and comment down below. You can hit subscribe that's right next to me if you want to hear more hip-hop and hops related content, or you can click on these other video links that are also popping up. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.